The European olive was introduced to Adelaide in the mid-1800s and has thrived in our region's climate and soils. Poorly managed or abandoned plantations have allowed for olives to establish themselves across our landscape and displace native vegetation. If not grown in managed plantations for commercial or domestic use, the European olive is considered a declared weed species within South Australia. We see olives as escapees from plantations, growing along roadsides, reserves and natural spaces, even growing in amongst grapevines. Every year, an individual tree can produce thousands of olives that can accumulate in the soil or spread with the aid of birds, up to 40 kilometres from its source.
Here at Natural Resources, Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges, we've been working on the control of olives for a number of years. One of the techniques we've been trialling is the basal bark control technique. This technique requires a lot less chemical, time and labour and has been very successful in comparison to other techniques. The basal bark method of olive control is quite different from traditional methods. The major difference is that it's easy to apply, user-friendly, with just a small volume knapsack and personal protective equipment. It doesn't require the extensive tree preparation and specialist equipment the other methods require. The process involves chemically ring barking an olive tree through the application of 1 part trichlor to 30 parts diesel or vegetable oil such as Biosafe. If done correctly, the tree dies over the ensuing months or year, depending on size. At this site, with some untreated olives and some treated olives, we trialled the technique of basal bark in comparison with the drill and fill method. The drill and fill method was quite expensive. For 14 trees, it worked out to $2,913, while for the basal treatment, which was quite quick, it was $356. Plan the timing of your olive control before the trees produce fruit or before the fruit is mature. Ideally, this is in spring to early summer. Assess the olive trees you plan to treat to ensure they're in good health. The basal bark method requires the trees to not be stressed to enable for the absorption and movement of the chemical to its roots. A tree can be stressed during extreme heat waves from disease or if under insect or fungal attack. Do not apply treatment if any of these stresses are present. If the trees aren't stressed, check the forecasts for heat waves and rain. Treatment of olives through the basal bark method should be a minimum of 24 hours before or after rain, never applied to wet stems.
When using chemicals in any form of pest plant control, you need to be dressed in the appropriate personal protective gear. If you can smell the chemical, that means you're ingesting it, so a full face covering is essential. Greg is wearing a full suit, boots, gloves, goggles and mask. Now that Greg is wearing full personal protective gear, he can begin mixing the chemical. The basal bark method of olive control requires 1 parts to 30 part mix of trichlor 600 to Biosafe vegetable oil. Read the label for the mixture required. If olive control is not mentioned on the label, use this ratio, which is the normal mix for woody weeds as per AgVet permit. With the spray pack, approach the tree. The chemical should be applied a minimum of 30 centimetres from the ground. Spray up the trunk or stems at least 1 metre. The higher you spray will mean a greater coverage. Be sure to completely cover the trunk and all stems from the lignotuber. For larger trees, reapply the chemical twice at 10-minute intervals. This will allow for greater chemical penetration. When finished spraying at a site, it is also advisable to place signs stating that chemical treatment has taken place and the olives should not be picked or eaten. The olive tree should die over the next few months. Monitor the trees. If there are green stems that may have been missed after 3 to 6 months, retreat the stems using the same method. There may be an olive seed bank in the soil. Therefore, you should revisit the site to remove any seedlings that may be growing. A likely result from less shading from the dying tree and the chemical staying within the dying or dead tree.
So these olive trees were basal bark treated and have died off very well, especially for the size of these olives as well. They've got quite large lignotubers and they're very dead. It's been a great result.
Has been a fantastic result.
Yeah.
Look at the size of these trees. 2 applications enough to kill these, and you don't have to worry about them. And you can see there's no olives that have come back underneath. It's been crowded out. These olives can stay here dead now, and they're good perching sites for birds, and they'll just be a part of the landscape.
It's actually amazing that birds would probably be more likely to use these dead olives now they're dead than when they were alive.
That's right.
It's a lot better for the environment. Natural Resources Adelaide and Mount Lofty Ranges has a range of pest plant control videos available on our YouTube channel and also available on our website.